Can I start with this? Some of the people defending against the fact that this is the first time the Republic has survived about 250 years. It's the first time this has ever been done. It's not the first time a crime has ever allegedly been committed by a former president. Some of the defenders of this prosecution say Trump's extraordinary. Trump's different. Trump is extra legal in the way he approaches life, behavior, all laws. Therefore, this is not precedent setting. You know, the ringmaster stands in a unique position. Therefore, don't worry. It won't be an opening of the floodgates. And I didn't believe it. And I thought Buck Sexton had a great tweet that kind of summed up my feelings in response. He tweeted out, "The lesson of Brett Kavanaugh's confirmation was that the Democrats will make up anything about anyone to destroy them. Now the lesson of Trump's indictment is that they will charge anyone about anything to destroy them." Does anyone really believe this crossing this Rubicon will stop with Trump?
Yeah. Well, you know, I was listening to your prior guest, and I must confess I was very disappointed. He is in a complete legal and political bubble. He has no idea what the public is thinking. When he says as a prosecutor he has a duty, does he really believe that we're going to be convinced that if Donald Trump, New York developer, pretty prominent person in New York, would have been indicted for this? No, he wouldn't know. And when you mentioned Hillary Clinton, I thought to myself, felony number one, she transmitted top secret documents, at least 16 classified messages on a private server. James Comey said it was an indictable offense, but he didn't think most prosecutors would do it. And then she destroyed felony two, subpoenaed documents. Felony three, she hired a foreign national, Christopher Steele, paid him and hid it through 3 paywall. You're not supposed to hire foreigners to work on your campaign. That's what he was doing. Then she was fined number 4 for, she called it legal expenses, but that was hiding the $1 million payment through 3 paywalls. James Comer was the director of national intelligence. He lied under oath to Congress and admitted he did. John Brennan admitted on 2 occasions he lied before Congress. James Comey went before the Congressional Intelligence Committee and admitted that on 245 occasions he couldn't remember. So what I'm getting at is not a what about him or what about him, but the public will not believe that there's an equal application of justice. This isn't a writ for Donald Trump at all. But they're never going to convince anybody that in this particular case, they just happen to go after Trump because this is a statute which they apply equally to every other prominent political figure. They don't.
Yeah.
And to try to suggest that they do is an insult to a person's intelligence. And then the other thing is this argument that he's been serial. Yes, he's reckless. Yes, he's on the edge. He's always on the razor's edge. Yes, he's different than most candidates. But we were told that Robert Mueller, the same vocabulary has been using. I hear it all the time on the media. Walls are closing in on Donald Trump. Walls are closing in. It's everywhere. Bombshell disclosure. And even your guest was telling us in detail what he's been told about the Mar-a-Lago and why that's going to be a more important case. Why doesn't he tell us what he's been told about the Joe Biden investigation? It's very strange how one professional prosecutor has no leaks whatsoever about the investigation of Joe Biden, which has a very different protocol, how they're according him deference. And we hear all of these leaks coming from lawyers about this other investigation. And when you look back at it, Russian disinformation, we heard the same thing, and it was a complete hoax. Same thing about the Hunter laptop disinformation. It was a complete hoax. And I don't know about the first impeachment, but my God, if the charge was that he was suspending or holding up offensive weapons that the Obama administration did not approve, but he did, and which were ultimately delivered because he had some crazy idea that the Biden family had leveraged Ukrainians using their positions in government, i.e. Biden's, for largesse. That seemed to me a pretty legitimate concern. So what I'm getting at is it's a political matter. And when he says, well, your guest said, well, he's really got a lot of exposure with the Mar-a-Lago. And I'm not a lawyer, so I don't know about the prerogatives of how you declassify a document, the actual legalities of saying that you can or cannot. But Joe Biden had no such, there's no such questions about him as vice president. He can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, I don't think
as I said, I don't think the law, I don't think the procedure is anywhere near as clear as Dave says it is. I've looked as a lawyer. I'm open-minded to show me what it is, and then we'll figure out whether he followed it. It's really not that clear.
But I think each of those potential, he's right that this is the weakest one, but each of the others has potential liabilities, because once you go after a former president for papers which could have been handled administratively, and you have a president that has, as a vice president, took out papers for years. We're not talking about months. They've been in violation of the law for years in a garage that's not as secure as Mar-a-Lago. You're not going to be able to convince the public that that's an equal application of justice.
But let me ask you this, Victor. So what Dave says, what many defenders of this prosecution regarding the Mar-a-Lago documents say, is everything changed when Trump defied the subpoena. It was one thing to have the documents, could have returned them at any time. They tried to work with him, but then he basically lied. He lied through his lawyer and saying, "Oh, we've returned them all." And that was a lie. And they claim, according to the Washington Post, they're going to have him on camera moving the documents.
If he did that, that's wrong. But there's a lie of commission, Megyn, and there's a lie of omission. And for the period of 2017 to the present, Joe Biden, in fact, lied to the U.S. government when de facto he didn't tell us that he had classified documents illegally in his possession in at least 1, 2, or maybe 3 unsecured locations. That's a lie. All he had to do was say, "I have them." And he didn't reveal that until a third party found that out. And the third party didn't have
ask you a question?
Classification.
Let me ask you another question. Here's my problem on that one. Here's my own answer on that one. It's my question. Okay, it's bad. You shouldn't lie. You certainly shouldn't hide documents while under subpoena. Although, if you have the power to declassify them and they're declassified and they're only asking for classified, now we're in a different territory. But why don't we know what Joe Biden did with Hunter Biden? Why don't we know how he's been compromised financially with respect to the doings of his son? Why isn't Hunter Biden under arrest? Why has it taken 3+ years for us to figure out that Hunter Biden's committed crimes with respect to drugs and guns, and he lied explicitly on his gun application form and so on? In the case of Joe Biden, it's because they won't investigate. They have refused to look into him in this relationship. And in the case of Hunter Biden, we have no answers. We don't know why. And so it's hard to get worked up about the Donald Trump subpoena. That's where I am on it. It's really hard to get worked up because it's a double standard.
I am. And the Mar-a-Lago writ is politically impossible, because once they indict him, the special counsel, there's going to be an uproar because of Michael Pence and especially Joe Biden. And I think the more that and remember, they're leaking about the prosecutors, as your guest seems to have knowledge about. I was kind of shocked that he was telling us that he hears and this may happen and this is, why doesn't he have that same detail of information about the Biden matter? He doesn't, because they're
he's a state attorney in Florida, where in the Mar-a-Lago jurisdiction. So he does presumably have sources there.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't have sources about Joe Biden, apparently. Nobody does, because it's ironclad, closed, because they're conducting a quote unquote in a professional manner, which they don't apply to other people. So I think what the American people are saying, Megyn, is they're getting sick and tired of the legal profession coming on and trying to convince people that they have these standards and protocols, and they believe in the American jurisprudence that it's applied equitably. It wasn't with January 6th and the 120 days of rioting and mayhem, and it wasn't with any of these things. It wasn't with the Mueller investigation. It wasn't with the laptop disinformation. These same people, I can remember almost chapter and verse, they told us, and they were experts, the same level of expertise that Hunter's laptop was likely Russian disinformation. And they used their expertise. And people are getting sick of it. And that's the problem. And we have all of these precedents. Donald Trump is a very volatile person. Everybody understands that. But he has now been the first president since Andrew Johnson to be impeached in his first term. That's one of the things the founders said, that was very dangerous, to impeach a president in his first term when you have an election as a referendum coming up. He's the first president that was ever impeached twice. He's the first president who was tried in an impeachment trial as a private citizen. You could even say he's the first president that the FBI director had a private conversation recorded on a government document and then leaked it to the media for the express purpose of getting a special counsel to try him.
Look, you did the tough thing during COVID. You paid your people and pulled your business through the pandemic. Now, doing the tough thing could qualify you for up to $26,000 per employee at covidtaxrelief.org. Government funds are available to reward companies with 2 or more employees who stayed open during COVID. This is not a loan, and you don't have to pay it back. The program is complicated, but no one knows more about it than the CPAs and tax experts at covidtaxrelief.org. You pay nothing up front. They do all the work and share a percentage of the cash they get for you. Businesses of all types, including nonprofits and churches, can qualify, including those who took PPP loans, even if you had increases in sales. You did the tough thing for your employees during COVID. Let covidtaxrelief.org help get you up to $26,000 per employee. Visit covidtaxrelief.org. That's covidtaxrelief.org, covidtaxrelief.org. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.